Welcome back to Ask Avidian. This is Jake Borbridge. I'm joined today by Robert Palmer. Robert, I've been doing a little bit more reading the news this week. I try not to do that too often. I try to, kind of tune the noise out. But I got really excited at a news story. I read that one of the presidential candidates, Kamala Harris, was starting to warm up to migrating to kind of a lower tax mindset. And so that got me really excited because I was thinking, okay, I had this vision in my mind of the first, kind of presidential candidate debate where, Kamala says, okay, this is my target for taxes. And then Trump says, no, this is my target. And they just start bidding against each other until they get to a point of zero. I thought that would be a great outcome for our country.
Absolutely.
Shortly after I read the headline, though, I read, okay, well, the new target tax rate is not 44% like the Biden proposal. It's more in the 33% range, which is still a huge jump from where we're at today. So dreams officially crushed, but I'm holding out that might actually become a thing in the future.
Death and taxes are inevitable.
Yeah.
The odds of taxes going down, very unlikely.
And who's to say? I mean, 20 years ago, we would have said negative interest rates, not possible. We've seen those in our lifetime. What about negative tax rates?
Hey, look, fingers are crossed.
Yeah, so let's keep that in the hopper. And if either of us need a political career, I think that'd be a great balance to run on.
That'd be a great football to throw around for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so something else I read in the news this week, which kind of piqued my interest, not necessarily because of the forecasting accuracy, but just kind of where the world is going. It was an article in Yahoo Finance just talking about ultra-rich families and how many of them there are today and how that's going to continue to grow in the future. And their projection was that we're going to have around 10,000 ultra-rich families globally in the year 2030. And I think they're defining that ultra-rich number by roughly in kind of the $500 to $1 billion range.
Oh.
That's a lot of wealth tied up in wealthy families. And I think that dynamic is going to change a lot of things about how money is managed. And also, it's going to create a drain, or I should say a strain, on the talent needed to run those family offices. I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
I would agree. I think talent, especially in today's world, is really hard to aggregate, and creating a really good, efficient team can be very expensive and costly. With that being said, with what you're seeing with this wealth transfer and how these ultra wealthy families are addressing them, what are some of the solutions that they're exploring? Like, how do they manage this?
So I think, a family office, right, a fully kind of baked family office is going to address a lot of needs, right? Just the complexity of having $1 billion of net worth, or having $1 billion as a family, and you've got, relatives and children, and everybody has different types of claims on that wealth. You want that wealth to continue to grow, but you also have a lot of financial needs that you need to make sure are accounted for. So there's a coordination effort. Sometimes you would just think about that as simply as bill pay, or kind of a bookkeeping service. So that's more of a logistical effort. There's a tax structuring effort. There's an investment equation to it as well. How do you design a portfolio or a series of portfolios to meet the needs and the goals, not just of you kind of immediate next 5 to 10 years, but longevity goals, right? Those can get really complex.
Yeah, that's my understanding of family office as well. It's not always typically narrowly tailored to one logistical output. It's typically investments, tax strategies, risk assessment through legal avenues and insurance avenues. It's really consolidating the whole picture and making sure everything is optimized and working in tandem with each other. Would that be fair to say?
I'm in total agreement, yeah.
So when does it make sense to do something like that? Because that sounds kind of expensive.
Yeah, so let's just talk about the features, right? Because I think some of the features are things that a lot more of a broader audience can get some mileage out of without necessarily structuring and actually building out and hiring people to do the family office. So I think some of the features, like the estate planning feature, the investment coordinations feature, like those things are things that investors with 5 to 10 million and maybe even lower, they can get a lot of benefit out of that, because in some cases they're going to grow into a situation where those are real challenges. Those create incredible financial complexities for them. But addressing those concerns early on, when you're still kind of in that smaller wealth stage, is really the right way to handle it. There's also the coordination effort of okay, I really want to have this family office. I like the idea of employees working for my family, figuring out our problems on a full-time basis. We kind of ran a very simple estimate of what's a good break-even point when paying for all those in-house with your own wealth starts to make sense. And just kind of back of the envelope calculation for us, it seemed to be in the $500 to $1 billion range. And I think consequently that's around where your average wealth is for a single family office, probably in that $1 billion range. There's a number of different things that you can do along that spectrum to decide, okay, well, how full service do you want your family office to be? But if you're, kind of looking at maybe somewhere between 10 and 100 million, you still need a lot of those services, but it probably doesn't make sense to just pay for them 100% out of pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost argue that the services that a family office brings are valuable to anyone you talk to, right? I mean, if you have $1 million in liquid or $10 million in liquid, you're still going to benefit from what that experience would bring in terms of just a consolidated picture and the strategies that you're able to execute. But as you pointed out, if you're not at that really high threshold, it doesn't really make sense to build out your own. So what would be the solution?
Yeah, so you need a partner, right? You need somebody to bring those services to you, and hopefully not charge you an arm and a leg for them. And, at Avidian, we talk about one of the things that we offer is a family office experience, right? So we want to make sure that when you have a need, we have those capabilities, those services available in-house for you to tap into. Obviously, investments, that as a CIO, that's what I focus on primarily. And we focus on investments that make sense not just for, the mass affluent, not just for the ultra high net worth, but everything in between. And we have, steps where we kind of allow people to kind of walk that path of accumulating additional wealth, and you can access different types of diversifying investments. So that's one way that we think about it. Robert, on the financial planning side, obviously that's something that you spend a lot of time with as well. I mean, how do you kind of navigate that landscape for these individuals?
Yeah, I mean, first thing I want to do is just give you a little credit here, a little pat on the back, because I'll tell you,
thank you.
Coming from the institutional side, the idea of someone who's doing the investments, who's really creating the models and adding new selections and alternatives, coming to someone in my position and communicating how these investments work and asking how this can operate within a financial plan, that is a level of transparency and collaboration that I just have never experienced before. And personally, if I'm sitting in front of a client and they're reviewing an investment, the better I understand that investment and the better I understand the financial plan, the better the investment's going to solve whatever they're looking to solve or any recommendation that I put in front of them. So I'll give you a little kudos there.
Thank you very much.
The other thing I would say is that, I don't see how people can have an advisory relationship without some kind of family office experience built into the offering. And here's what I mean by that. There's a lot of legislative changes that are occurring within just the next few years. And if you're an individual that has $1 million liquid, typically your net worth is much more than $1 million, several million more on average. And that means that 1, you're productive, 2, you're very busy, and 3, there's a lot going on. And if you're looking forward and forecasting it out, the complexity just compounds over time. Ideally, so will your returns, but that only is the case if there's some kind of structure, some kind of process or strategy in place that's tying everything together. So from my perspective, I think offering something like a family office experience is essential. If you're really going to get that holistic planning, if you're really going to have a strategy that addresses all the things you're looking to address, it needs to encompass more than just an investment relationship.
So then, as your returns are compounding, which is a good thing, right? There's definitely a risk of your wealth growing more rapidly than your financial planning picture accounts for, right?
Absolutely.
You grow into complexity that you didn't even know that you had. And if you don't plan ahead for that, then you may be disadvantaged when that complexity arises, right?
That's exactly right. And I would also just highlight, this is where tax strategies comes into play. And again, it only further emphasizes why you need to account for all these different facets, because if you do have rapidly appreciating assets, which a lot of people with business interests often do, understanding how to silo it or freeze the value from an estate planning perspective becomes essential. Because otherwise, all that hard work is going to be taxed at 40% if you're not careful.
Okay. And I think it's probably worthwhile noting, too. I mean, we do work with some really intelligent people, and a lot of our clients are way smarter than the two of us, even the two of us combined, right? I mean, it's it's just a fact. However, the busyness, I think, is something to really kind of think about, and so there are probably clients that we work with that could do our jobs better than we can do our jobs, right? But they have a day job, and they can't focus 100% of the time on the things that we focus on 100% of the time. Is that fair?
That is very fair.
And so I think, we kind of think about Avidian also as a way to kind of supercharge your financial expertise, right? Think about it as you've got a team when you go to work or when you go to, kind of do your normal day-to-day stuff. There is somebody working behind the scenes all the time, thinking about your best interests, trying to put you in a position to succeed financially, especially on an after-tax basis.
Well, Jake, you bring up a lot of great points, and that actually makes me want to share a few stories that we've experienced here at Avidian, because we work with families that have this similar range of asset thresholds, from a couple million to tens of millions, even to clients that have hundreds of millions, and they truly do benefit from that family office experience. And they may fall just underneath that ultra high net threshold of $500 to $1 billion to create their own. So I think where I'd like to focus is where they're finding value. So I'll start with the sort of lower threshold clients that are around like 1 to 25 million or so. A lot of the times, again, they're operating businesses. They're very busy. That time crunch that you brought up becomes more and more relevant as time passes on. And when we're sitting down with them, they don't really have a full view into what their accountants are doing alongside their attorneys, alongside their investment professionals, a lot of moving pieces. So when we sit down with them, one of the things we do is we put up their tax information. We show them what they're saving and what certain investments are costing. We put that next to their cash flow models to show what kind of expenses are coming up, and we make sure that they're positioned in order to address those goals. And keep in mind, when you're dealing with these asset thresholds, it's not typically, oh, I want to buy a new Ferrari this month. It's I want to buy a business next month. And so they need to optimize their cash flow in order to make sure that they're able to do that acquisition. And then they need to create a strategy to liquidate that business interest. Now, everything I just brought up is well beyond the scope of a standard relationship that I've seen with most advisors. But I think that only emphasizes the differential that we're trying to bring here, that elevated experience that's really pulling in these different facets of the picture and showing how it all works together.
I think those are great points. And I think the thing to again, put yourself in the mind of a business owner. Business owner is going to know every detail of what's going on in their shop, in their factory, kind of in their whatever they're manufacturing, right? And they probably know, to the hour or to the day when they don't show up for work, how much is lost, right? How much money is lost. And so it creates a tremendous incentive to just focus very intently on operating the business, running the business, maximizing that, whether it's cash flow or enterprise value of the business. When you present the potential savings or the potential benefit, and a lot of times, this is not a days long process that our clients have to go through. This is a brief meeting where they share our goals and another brief meeting where we share our insights. The trade-off there, making that comparison of, okay, well, you're going to take an hour or a couple hours out of your day to run this analysis or to take action on these items, right? That comparison, allowing them to see, okay, well, I understand how much I'm losing by not being at work today or taking a day off or taking a half day to act on these things, but seeing the potential benefit, it's there's no comparison, right? It's a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think the other big differentiation is how far in the future are you planning, right? I think a lot of relationships when it comes to advisory practices tend to feel a bit transactional, right? The money comes in, there's a fee that's charged, and then there's usually periodic check-ins, and that's about it. But the scope of the conversation that I try to have all the time is, what's the next generation going to look like, and are we planning for it?
Yeah.
So it's not just those one-off transactional relationships that we're going for. We're looking to establish long-standing, multi-generational conversations and goals. And when you gear assets or any kind of allocation toward that aim, you just wind up with a smoother glide path to achieve a larger goal rather than the small sort of myopic goals that the short term tend to highlight.
That's a good point. I want to maybe shift gears just a little bit, right? So we're talking about, probably the $10 to $20 million client that they're going to see their wealth continue to compound and maybe they get to that kind of triple digit figure.
That's right.
There's going to be some success stories, and we've had some internally already, clients that have done, far in multiples of that, where our interaction with them starts at, kind of a single digit millions, but through that client's own efforts, and maybe even in combination with some of our efforts on the investment side or the planning side, they see their wealth compound not in multiples, but in orders of magnitude, where at a point they're getting into that echelon of, okay, $500 to $1 billion. I'm getting close to that. I need to start planning. Okay, what do I want to do at that threshold? Do I want to cross over and start thinking about branching off or doing some of these services in house with my own family, or starting my own family office? We love our clients a lot. Sometimes we probably love them a little bit too much. In that situation where we've got a client that's getting into that echelon, are they going to be trying to break out of the Avidian building, and we're going to be fighting them tooth and nail and hanging on to their shirt tail and trying to get them not to leave? What's the approach for Avidian in that situation?
Yeah, it typically falls within two avenues that people tend to pursue. One is that they look at the cost of opening their own shop, kind of like how you highlighted, and they say, well, I'm paying substantially less than what that will cost me by being billed at 65 basis points or 1%. So I'd rather stay where I'm at, and let's see if they can handle the issues that I bring before them. So they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, I just bought 100 acres of land and I need to parcel it out. Can you help us out? And that's one of those job descriptions you don't always anticipate when you take the job, but those are the conversations that we wind up having. And we go deep into the weeds when it comes to those types of planning conversations. We talk about, okay, here's the land, here's some active things you can do on the land, here's how you can pass through some tax benefits to the other LLCs that you own. I think that highlights the type of value that we're able to bring. Now, the other avenue that these individuals will pursue is, I definitely want to open up my own shop, but I don't exactly know how to vet the talent to make sure I have a good team around me to effectuate the result that I want.
Or even know what talent they need, right? Which people do you need in the seats that you're going to open up?
That's right. And normally you're going to need everything from people that can help manage bill pay, basic bookkeeping, all the way to investment management, insurance management, liability coverage, all that stuff slowly starts accumulating around you when you try to build your own office. So the way that we would work with someone who's looking to open their own office is we'd supplement them, right? We'd come into the family office and serve either as sort of like an OCIO functionality, operating as their chief investment officer to help manage funds, and also as sort of their planning officers. We'll come in and help them plan, and we'll supplement maybe members of their own family that are running their own day-to-day operations, as well as other individuals that they want to surround themselves with, and help them build that team and be part of that team. So either avenue, we either are the entire team or we're supplementing an existing team.
So we've got a launch plan, right? I mean, we're thinking about this as clients growing into that capability. Mm-hmm. We're helping them launch, right? We're not holding them back, is right. What you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. Robert, it's been a lot of fun talking about this kind of stuff. Again, I'm going to hold on to negative tax rates. Maybe that'll become a thing. But to the extent that it's not, we're still going to need financial planning. We're going to need tax efficiency. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you want to learn more or get in touch with us, check us out on avidianwealth.com.